Good morning. So this morning we are joined by Andrew Geoghegan, who is the outgoing Chief Marketing Transformation Officer for PZ Cussons and formerly the Global Consumer Planning Director of Diageo. So I'm delighted to welcome you, Andrew, this morning. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, good morning.
So everyone's going to be dying to hear your answers on this one. So I think we'll probably dive straight in and start with an easy one where you can set the scene for us. So firstly, what led you to a career in marketing?
Good question. I think, like many, I'm a bit of an accidental marketer. So I grew up in a state school I was a state schools kid in Bradford, and Bradford at the time was at the end of an economic cycle as manufacturing of kind of textiles moved to China and consumer preferences were changing. And I think in that environment, I was naturally curious. I like to push boundaries. I love books, music, culture. I ended up studying modern languages at university. I lived abroad in Spain. And honestly, I had no idea what careers were out there. But I think a combination of those things meant I ended up falling first into qualitative research, always international, and then insights and planning. And I think making sense of how to grow and change and regenerate has always been a kind of core part of who I am and where I've lived. And so, from that unfolded a career in marketing, really focused on making sense of consumers and culture and applying that to drive growth. First at PepsiCo, then at Diageo, and then most recently in a transformation role at PZ Cussons.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the transformation role, because I think the work you've done is absolutely fascinating. Where did you get the bug for transformation work?
Yeah, well, that was definitely when I was at Diageo. So I was really lucky. A real career highlight for me was when I was rather dauntingly given the task of finding an incremental £100 million profit from our quite significant spend in marketing at the time of, I think it was 1.5 billion. And that was part of a big productivity program. So this is probably going back 7 or 8 years when a lot of big businesses were put on pressure by things like the kind of 3G capital movement. And rather than saving, what I kind of did was defined and scaled a marketing effectiveness program that was powered by data and technology across all of our brands and markets. And actually, I wrote it up as an IPA case study, and that was really successful. And we absolutely smashed the original targets. But it really taught me about how to think about systems and how to change systems, how to kind of encourage people to want to change. And I found that really fascinating. It was almost the application of some of the core skills of marketing at an organizational level. So really interesting and a real formative experience for me, quite a good number of years into my career.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And I must congratulate you as well while we're chatting this morning, because you have been included in this year's Marketing Week Top 100 Most Effective Marketers, which you must be absolutely thrilled about. And is, the brand transformation at Carex, is that something that you're particularly proud of?
Absolutely. So my job at PZ Cussons has been to drive a shift from a trading to a brand building business. So that is around, again, it's systemic change across all of the identified must-win brands, talent, tools, processes, capabilities, agencies, the whole 9 yards. And Carex is a really emblematic brand for that business. It's 30 years old next year. And when it was created, that benefit of antibacterial was really novel. But, it's kind of table stakes now. So you can get that from private label and other brands. So our job was to really unlock that problem. How do you make it remarkable again? And so it was with a new agency, we got to an insight that took us from that functional into a much more human territory. It was about consumers seeking the freedom to thrive. And we brought that to life in some creative work I'm really proud of, because it shows a much more inclusive slice of UK life, and along with new claims, packaging, pack price architecture, media spend, the brand has been able to emerge stronger, gain market share with proven growth drivers now using marketing mix modeling that honestly really kind of smashed all the FMCG norms. So it's a great example of changing everything about the approach to a brand, which is what we've had to do as well on all of the must-win brands to, as I said, make that shift. And it's really great. At the end of the first, I think, 18 months in that I was enrolled, we'd got all but one of those must-win brands into market share growth, and we were back on TV or using mass media and so on. So yeah, Carex is a really lovely story. Some really lovely work that our agency did on that.
Oh, I'm very very excited for you and what you and your team have delivered on that. And I'm always curious with regards to these transformational roles. It's as much about the leadership of the team as well. So how do you lead a team through these transformational projects?
Oh, wow. I mean, projects like this require real deep change, and it does require taking the time with people, with your team, to make the case for change. Because, I mean, fundamentally, I love change projects, but guess what? The clue is there that I'm kind of in control and in charge of them. But in general, people are resistant to and don't like change happening to them. So making the case for change is important. Painting the vivid picture of what's to come, making it then manageable, because it once you've got that vision, it can be overwhelming for people. And then I think one of the other points is just to connect it to each individual as to what's in it for them. Because when you get people to see what change will bring for them personally, that it's about growth, then that sense of fear subsides. Because I think for me, and maybe this goes back to the question you asked me at the beginning, is transformation means having the humility to change yourself, to be open to being a different person at the end of it, to have different skills, perspectives, and capabilities, to fail, and to recognize that in failure comes growth. And I also sometimes recognize that the personal and system biases that are there mean that you might not succeed. So celebrating the people, the milestones on the way, the successes and the failures all become quite important. So I think it's not straightforward. You have to really think holistically about managing people to become change as opposed to experiencing change.
How insightful. And you clearly have a natural affinity both for leading a team and delivering successful transformation projects. And it's a real art. It's a real skill.
Thank you.
I'm curious, one of our recent events, we were talking with the chief officer about sort of priorities for 2024, and I wondered what your thoughts are, kind of looking forward to next year. What do you think will be the key priorities for senior marketing leaders?
I think the next couple of years, never mind the next year, I think they're going to be tough. I think we're living through the aftershocks of all the things that have been happening in the last couple of years. Those of us who remember 2008 and previous instances will remember it took 3 or 4 years. I think it was only 2011 before consumers were really feeling the pinch in their own kind of personal spending. And we're in that kind of cycle, but on a grander scale. This has really disrupted so many interconnected things. And as a result, I really think the marketing world needs to be constantly checking and making sense that they're doing the right things against their long-term vision, and to be really aware of the societal and the environmental impacts that's happening. I think, this is not new, but tech is forcing us to question how we reach our audiences. Some of the things happening will be red herrings. If you remember, we were all talking about the metaverse a couple of years ago, and that's really come to nothing. AI, on the other hand, I think is going to help us make a lot of complex things easier to do. But I think just experimenting, being open to that, and honestly, the the environment that we're in is probably not been as complex since the early 80s. And I think that is really challenging for a lot of people. But in that complexity, I'm really optimistic that marketers who ultimately are about new ideas from growth have got the potential, if they put their minds to it, to break some paradigms and to do some really different and interesting things. So I think there's a lot going on and we need to be really attentive, but I do think the future has lots of exciting possibility in it.
Oh, thank you. It's good to hear your thoughts on that, and I like your comment about the potential opportunity for kind of the emerging marketing leaders as they come through to really do something quite different. And on that sort of tone of advice, is there a piece of advice that you would share with emerging marketeers as they sort of are at the earlier stages of their career?
I think, honestly, I would really want them to be as bold as they possibly can and to have the courage to put aside identify and put aside the things that might hold them back from being all that they can be. I do quite a bit of mentoring and through the Marketing Academy, and I do hear consistently the same things that my generation of marketers experienced, which is, the usual things of imposter syndrome and, not quite knowing, trying to read the system and being focused on the next role. And I would really encourage people to be as bold as they possibly can in pushing their own boundaries, trying new things and seeing that they have each generation has the opportunity to do things differently and build on the legacy of the past, but also move things forward. Go and do it.
Be bold and push boundaries and go and do it. That sounds fab. And positivity is so important. We do a lot. We talk a lot about mindset, and I'm always fascinated as we meet our sort of senior leaders. You tend to all have very good habits in terms of keeping a positive mindset. Is there a daily habit or practice or a tip that you have with regards to mindset that may be of benefit to others?
Yeah, I think, by the way, I think this is still emergent. If I reflect back, 15, 20 years ago, I think we all worked far too hard. We were second guessing ourselves and probably didn't put enough time into getting the right equilibrium. So I think it's great that you're highlighting that, because to manage a long career requires resilience and patience and, being able to create new energy and change. So for me, there are probably two things. One is I do get into nature every single day. I'm very fortunate where I live, and I start my day with a walk or run in the hills, and that helps me clear my mind, process what's going on. I'm naturally very reflective, and that helps me make sense of things. And I think the other thing, and this is definitely something I would encourage all marketers to do, is have a commitment to your own development, to your own lifelong learning, and even something small or big you should be doing every day. And that for me could be podcasts, some stimulus from the Marketing Academy, or actually I've just completed a year's training to be an executive coach, which the skills for which are going to be so profoundly useful in unlocking growth and potential from other people and from the people I work with. So I would really encourage people to work on themselves, evolve, adapt, and make that something that you do every day. Because honestly, we can't leave our lives and our careers and our families and what's important to us to chance.
Yes, quite right. You and I have a similar start to the morning. I also either if I'm down working in London, I'm either sort of running around one of the parks in London, or if I'm back at home in Worcestershire, running over the fields. And it's the best possible way to start the day. Clears the head, means you can think about everything, come back feeling absolutely fantastic. So Andrew, thank you. Wonderful answers to those questions. Really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. It's been lovely catching up and chatting with you today.
Pleasure.